With these walls, then, the whole history, later history of the Near East. Planting people in high mountain valleys, and later in the great river valleys, Tigris, Euphrates, and Nile, and then barbarians raiding in from the desert and great plains. Two orders of barbarians. One, the Semites, from the Syro-Arabian desert, raiding in from the south. The others, the Indo-Europeans, raiding in from the north. The Indo-Europeans are herders of cattle, and it is they who first domesticated the horse and invented the war chariot, which became an invincible weapon. The Semites were herders of sheep and goats, and they later mastered the camel. I want to move now to the Near East, where the first cities appear, and here's something entirely new. The culture life of a small community or nomadic tribe would be pretty well available to everybody in the community. You would have a community of equivalent adults. The distinctions would be age group distinctions, male and female distinctions, and the distinctions between the normal order of people and the specially gifted shamanic visionaries. But with the enlargement of the communities which followed the establishment of agriculture and the domestication of animals, we begin to have a differentiation of professions. And instead of a culture of what might be called generalists and amateurs, we have professionals. People whose whole life and the whole dynasty of their family are devoted to government, or the priesthood, or trade, or the agriculture. So we have a differentiation of peoples and a new problem, namely to get people of different life forms to experience themselves as members of a single organism. So that's what's disintegrating in our world, with the worker against the employer and this against that and so forth and so on. That's a disintegration of a cultural organism. And in the early cultures, the problem was to keep the organization intact. With the professional priesthood, there was a recognition of the passages of the planets through the zodiac of the fixed constellations. These were the people who first invented writing and arithmetic, numeration in terms of the tens and of 60s, the sexagesimal and the reckoning by tens. And we still use sexagesimal for reckoning cycles of time or of space. With writing, mathematics, and precise observation of the heavens, it was possible to determine that the planets were moving at a mathematically determinable rate. So we begin to get an idea of a cosmic order that can be mathematically recorded. This is a whole transformation of culture. Something altogether new and different comes in. In the earlier situations, this peculiar tree, this special pond or rock, the exceptional becomes important. And then the animal that is of most importance, or the plant, and so forth and so on. But now we begin to have the notion of a cosmic order, and the exception is out rather than in. The exception is aberrant. And so we have a totally new kind of way of regarding the universe. Now we come to 2350 BC, Sargon I. This is the first known important Semitic emperor in this zone. These people have come in from the Syro-Arabian desert. They come in as conquerors and then as rulers. His date, 2350 BC, a beautiful bronze. Now the story of Sargon, he was born of a humble mother in the upper reaches of the river, the Tigris. And she put him in a little basket of rushes that had been made watertight by pitch and confided him to the waters of the river. And he floated down the river and was pulled out of the river by a gardener on the royal estate. And the goddess loved him, and so he advanced in rank and presently became the ruler himself. Have you heard anything like that story ever before? This is, of course, just about 2,000 years earlier than the text with which you're familiar. He is the first conqueror for whom we have praise and celebrations of victory. It is at about this time that wars of conquest come into being. Formerly, wars were simply revenge wars or ceremonial wars like the one I showed in New Guinea. And a village would be raided, and that was it. But now we have substantial conquest, and we have hymns and celebrations celebrating these conquests, tearing down and annihilating of cities, and a refrain that comes back, and we washed our weapons in the sea, and we washed our weapons in the sea. So here it is, about 2400 BC, the beginnings of the kind of war that have been distinctive of our world of civilization ever since. And ruthless annihilation of the whole population. Just read the book of Judges, read the book of Joshua, and you get plenty of it. Now we come to about 1750 BC, and this is Hammurabi, Hammurabi of Babylon. It's from his period that the great epic of Gilgamesh comes. Here is Hammurabi receiving the law from the god Shamash, the sun god. You see the sun rays from his shoulders. As Moses received the law from Yahweh, so Hammurabi from Shamash. And when the law comes with that kind of a backing, it can't be fooled around with. The law is, of course, invented by Hammurabi, but attributed to God, and we can say the same for Moses.
From the early mother goddess to the time of Hammurabi, the transformation is complete. The story of humankind has taken on new dimensions of conquest and empire. The goddess who once reigned supreme, Mother Sky and Mother Earth, has been overthrown. Masculine gods now rule, and their will is interpreted by a professional priesthood and imposed by a ruling dynasty. There were a number of early city-states and many empires. Many of us remember learning about the Fertile Crescent, the ancient Sumerians and the Babylonians. But to most of us, ancient civilization means Egypt. While the histories of other lands are measured in centuries, that of Egypt is measured in millennia.
We move now to Egypt,